Well, good morning. I think we should start, no? I'm Dutch, and we always start on time in Holland, which can be very confusing for people in any other country in the world. I don't know what this means, that hardly anyone is there, if I may say so. But still, good you're here. There's one thing I want to say. You're all business owners, and you all have good businesses, otherwise you would not be part of this community. And first of all, I want to congratulate you with that. But you as business owners also understand when anyone starts a new business or a new enterprise, there is such a thing called the expectation war. And the expectation war means that you have to be successful in the perception of a lot of people and especially the press. Well, if it comes to that, we won the expectations war. But actually, as the owner of a very small company that just started and actually also won the expectation war in the press, I also know that it has to come with a feeling of being grounded because there are many expectations. It means that people trust that you can achieve something, but we are only successful if you're successful. So rest assured, there's nobody in the organization run by Patrick and by Sophie. There's nobody in the board who believes we made it. By the way, we never make it. We only make it when you make it. But it's good that we had such good press. And I hope it was a good fair for all of you. And I'm absolutely convinced that the future for being in New York, for you as the dealer community, looks bright. So having said that, would like to pass on the mic to the people who actually do the work. And maybe we should start with Patrick. And by the way, by now, I don't really have to introduce all the board members anymore, right? I hope you understand who are here. It's Heidi, it's Christophe, it's Christian, and it's Frank. And it's Ben.
Yeah, good morning. It's 9 o'clock. Thank you for coming. You know, I'm extremely proud of the fact that after the sixth fair and in the third year, TEFAF New York is so well established. And I want to thank the team, the TEFAF team, and I want to thank also the board members for helping us doing that, but also you, because Nan is right, the press is very, very flattering for us, but they also talk about the art that you bring. And this fair could not be so important and so well received if the people who make the fair, which is you, are not putting forward the best pieces of art which you've done. That's what people say. It is the best art you can see in the world, basically. And that's what you have done for us. So I want to thank you and congratulate you all as well. We have some statistics and some information which I will hand over to Sophie. Sophie has done an unbelievable job with her team, and I'm very, very pleased that it's been so successful from an operational and logistical side.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I wanted to just give you some top-line information and then dive right in because we're really here to hear from you. So I won't bore you too much with the details, but I do want to preempt a few comments that I've heard and talk about them before before you get to asking me about them. Our attendance numbers, we've had about a 30% increase in attendance vis-a-vis our first year, 2017. We're slated to end the day at 18,000 people, of which 5,000 VIPs. We completely understand that more is not always better, right? To preempt you, Adrian. Those of you who participate in TEFAF Maastricht know that, we have a vastly improved two-day preview system there. And we will be implementing different programs here to ensure that on that first day especially, you have a manageable amount of meaningful visitors for you that you can interact with and have meaningful conversations with. So definitely stay tuned for that. On the press side, we had over 100 mentions in the press, including the New York Times, Architectural Digest, Apollo, Art Newspaper, Vogue. According to the New York Times, just 3 years in, this event is now, an appointment, something that is worth going to, that everyone knows they have to go to. I want to thank you for making that possible. The booth presentations that you bring to this fair and the works that you bring to this fair have really elevated this fair beyond, our wildest dreams at this point, 3 years in. So thank you for that. Also wanted to give a quick mention about the museums that come. We do a fair bit of museum outreach. We had 200 museum representatives here, from over 30 different museums. We had 55 different museum patron groups come through, and we have confirmed that a number of them have acquired or are in the process of acquiring. So we're very excited about that. Of course, we have the important New York museums, but we're not just focused on the Met, the MoMA, the Whitney, the Guggenheim, but we are really interested in getting more museums from across the US. So we had the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, we had the Museum of Contemporary Art in LA, MFA Houston, and many others. So that was very exciting for us to see. We're also strengthening our partnerships with important publications such as Architectural Digest and Elle Decor. The interior design community is very important to us. You might have noticed on Thursday we had a preview event, and you might have seen a few interior designers walking around. That is something that we're going to be doing more of in the future. So definitely excited for that. And with that, I think we're excited to hear your feedback, any ideas you might have that strengthen our collective experience at the fair. So any comments, any questions, more than welcome. Thank you.
Anyone? David?
Yeah, I thought that the move-in was seamless. The build-up in the move-in, at least from our point of view, was seamless this year, and so it was the best move-in experience we've ever had in any fair that I can think of. So thank you for that. I thought at the opening, at least where we were, which was the furthest aisle when you come into the right, and somewhere near the top of it, there wasn't enough circulation of hors d'oeuvres and drinks at the opening. I never got out of my stand to see what it was like elsewhere, so it may have been the same at every place, except I did see that drinks, very nice, were being served at the entrance when people were coming in.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can speak to that. Thank you for the compliments also. Thank you to the team for making a smooth move-in possible for everyone. We did try a new food concept this time. We had a lot of complaints about the food in the middle of the aisles, the buffet tables, et cetera. And we're making sure that the past hors d'oeuvre situation is good for everyone, and that everyone gets enough. So our catering, we're constantly looking at improving that and making sure that there weren't any dark spots. So thank you for that feedback, and we'll definitely, as part of the survey, also make sure that we get as many comments as possible about where there might be gaps, and we'll make sure to remedy that.
One other small thing where I want to compliment you, and it seems so small but important to us as exhibitors, the trash was being picked up, it seemed like every few minutes this year. In contrast, even in Maastricht, where it's overflowing so much of the time, so that's terrific too.
Yeah, what I really liked about what the team accomplished is there was only finger food, no plates, no mess. I mean, these dumplings were disgusting, even to look at, let alone to eat it. So I think there was a major improvement, but you're right, the flow of the school is very high.
Yeah, but it was not just at the opening, it's been throughout the fair.
Anyone else? Yes.
About the opening, I would also like to say that there was a great crowd here, but maybe too many. We found it very difficult for our clients and for myself to move in the edges. And then that was possibly why the champagne disappeared.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned a little bit earlier too, we know that more isn't always better, that, we definitely need to be able to crowd control. And in Maastricht, we just went through exercises to make sure that our opening days are really just for those meaningful VIPs that you'd like to see. We had 1,000 more VIPs this year than we had our first year 2 years ago. So we're definitely working on ways to make sure that we have the right flow and the right number of people.
More questions, sorry.
Okay, I would like to speak a little bit about the difference of New York and Maastricht. So I'm absolutely happy with New York. It's a great show and it was very good for us. So there are little things to change, but in all, for me, it's the best fair anyway. If we now look here, we have a small group of exhibitors. In Maastricht, almost everybody is there. So maybe if I speak about the TEFA family, the idea, the old and a little bit old-fashioned in that maybe, about this community of dealers that we talk to each other, we criticize each other, we give hints to each other. If I get a letter from TEFA of New York, which is signed, important letter, which is signed your TEFA team, I don't feel well. There should be a name to whom I can respond. And I just like the idea of that fair, that we are a family. We are interested in each other, we are interested in what he's doing. We don't want to move people around. We don't want to send letters without a person to each other. I don't know how this could be improved. I don't know how can we include these big important galleries, the Gagosians and in the family, yes? But I don't know whether someone of the big galleries is today here, and it would be good from you, from the board, to tell them, okay, we want to include you. Don't come only with your project, in, out, everything sold beforehand or at the opening, and then they disappear.
I think it's a two-tiered question, right? There's one question and there's an observation. If I may start with the observation, that's actually not only a great question, it's also very easy to answer because I would consider it fixed. I think it is actually a very good suggestion. It should not come from the team, it should come from someone. In all honesty, we had a complex situation the last 6-7 months, ownership situation TEFA of New York.
But that's been resolved, so there is actually someone who can put his name under that letter. I think it's a very good suggestion and consider it done. Absolutely, I agree on that. The other question or also observation you asked is maybe a little bit more complex. On the other hand, we do have some very strong chairmen of the different categories in the EC. And in this case, it's Christophe who's actually personally very much involved in building up these relationships. Actually, he had those relationships already. I think everyone in the EC needs to have very strong relationships, otherwise you shouldn't be in the EC. And Christophe has actually shown, with the help of Frank, who's in the BOT, what a personal relationship can achieve. So I think single-handedly, well, double-handedly, they actually achieved that all these big names are now part of what you still call the TEFA family. And I actually like that idea of the TEFA family because it's rather remarkable. Every dealer I talk to tells me, Nana, we love TEFA because we got to know so many dealers in different categories that we didn't know yet. Some of them became clients, and some of them in completely different categories actually brought clients that I didn't have yet. I mean, it's not really an answer, but it was also not really a question, but maybe that helps a little bit. On this?
But to be honest with you, I didn't really understand the question, or I didn't really understand what your second point of the question. About something about Gagosian, what was it?
No, I just think we are coming from this old-fashioned idea of TEFA, Maastricht, dealers meeting for 10 days, being together. And now I have the feeling, and this might be totally normal because it's the time, our business changed totally, yes? I mean, if I look, I started in '84. If I look at my business now, what Nana always says, it changed totally. So I don't know, this is the kind of question I put in the room, whether we can keep a little bit of the good old-fashioned art dealer, society, community, starting with dealers offering paintings through the internet they never saw. Yes, it's for me, for example, it is important first to see the painting in the flesh, from the back, from all sides, to check the provenance, etc., etc. So it's really not a brisk question. It's an idea. How can we include these huge galleries a little bit more in this family thinking?
You know, when Nane and Patrick contacted, Frank and Ben and I think the mission was to make the best possible fair. And, everyone has their own ways to operate their business. Some galleries like to, have the family style, some other galleries. I mean, I can speak for Gagosian because I used to work there for 7 years. Gagosian, they do their thing. They come here, they operate their business, they have their other galleries. They do their thing. They will not operate as a family. I can tell you that right now. They will do their business. They'll do their great shows. The show that they have given us here is amazing. I mean, it's one of the best Gagosian show I've ever seen, and we feel so lucky and fortunate to have such a display that they have. But our mission is just to do what's in the best interest of the fair, and we've been asked to do the best possible show that we can, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and you see dealerships change as well. If you look how much Arnie and his son are involved, how much Susan Dunn got involved as actually be part of this community, big time. I mean, you also see pace changing over the last couple of years.
And also, I think it takes a little of time. If you want to become to a family, you need to get used to the family. So some of these big dealers who are here, we like them to come to Maastricht, and I think they will come to Maastricht. And again, much to the credit of the team here, who has been really, really, really helpful in getting the big ticket dealers to Maastricht. And if they come to Maastricht, the family feeling starts to build up a little bit. We need to be a little bit patient and help them a little bit to welcome them into the family, I think.
I also just wanted to say that, I encourage you all not to judge too harshly. It's not always going to be the owner of the gallery who's standing on the stand all day long, but these are people and directors with a lot of connoisseurship, a lot of passion, and a lot of love for the art that they represent, a lot of knowledge. And, just walk up to them and have conversations. I talk to them, and I can recognize the same passion that you have, even if they're not necessarily all the gallery owners. It is changing and it is different, but I do think that over time they'll get used to the family.
There's one thing I want to add to that, because there were in the past also complaints that maybe not everyone from the board was really very involved because we didn't go into every booth. I can assure you everyone in the EC and in the Board of Trustees present here has been in all the booths, but we do it especially when there's no one around. I personally find it rather intrusive to come into a booth and say, hello, do you know who I am? How are things going? Because I remember it well as a dealer how distracting it is to get the director of a bank or an ambassador of a chairman or of an organization into your booth because they're not going to buy anything anyway. So I would like to actually turn it around. If there's anything you want to mention to a board member or an EC member or to me, yes, we try to do everything we can to talk to all of you, but if there's anything pressing you want to discuss, everyone is completely open to that, and we don't necessarily want to bother you when you do your job.
We mentioned Maastricht, and I think it's an important thing that I'd like to raise. As you all know, we would love to have people who are dealers who are here in New York to come to Maastricht. As it happens, the opening of Basel, Hong Kong coincides with the date of TEFAF Maastricht as we speak. The opening of Basel, Hong Kong is in the midst of the TEFAF fair in 2020. I can assure you that we are doing everything to see what we can do and can change the dates for TEFAF to avoid any hassle for people who want to participate in Maastricht and in Hong Kong. We're on top of it. We understand how important it is, but it's not as easy as we think, because there are all kind of contractual obligations that the MAC and the Consent Center has. But the last couple of days I've been talking with the MAC, and we're trying to see what we can do to avoid this clash. So stay tuned. We completely understand how important it is to avoid this.
Yeah, sorry. Switching gears for a minute, but referencing Maastricht with regard to vetting. I wonder if we could make the same suggestion here that the membership did in Maastricht, that there be one non-voting dealer member as part of each vetting group. Some of the comments I heard from colleagues that vetters had to make, it just seemed we're completely out of touch with market realities and had little or nothing to do with the work of art, the authenticity, provenance, and so forth.
I think it's a very good point, David. First of all, I think changing the vetting committees into the kind of vetting committee we have now was actually a big success, but there were some flaws. The biggest flaw was a communicational flaw. We actually were not very specific in mentioning that dealers were not excluded. The only big change we made is that we don't want dealers who are actually members of the fair and exhibiting at the fair and potentially make co-own artworks at the fair to be a voting member. But we could have been much clearer in saying, of course, expertise within the dealer community is incredibly important. For obvious reasons, we chose and decided that these dealers should not have should not be voting members of a committee. The other thing is we can be much better in instructing the more scholarly members of a vetting committee in telling them that they have, of course, to engage as much as they can with the dealer community. I think there's a learning curve there. Most committees were actually quite successful. There were a few where things didn't go as smooth as we had hoped that it would have gone. So it's work in progress. But what you just told me the other day, I've heard from other people. All of us have heard it from other people, and it's taken very seriously. As you know, Cécile is in charge of all the vetting committees, and Wim Pijbes, who's the chair of the vetting committees, we've spoken with. I think communication will solve 99% of the problems, and then there are some other things we really need to do. Now, anyone else? A question? Sorry.
My apologies, I've been in late if this has already been addressed, but I've just been curious, being a New York dealer and watching and working in the building at different times of the year, including the spring TEFA, and just watching clients come in and asking about the fairs and the different identities, sort of like, where am I upstairs? Are you here in the fall? Or no, the fall's very different. And I'm just curious how you see the two fairs moving forward and how you are sharing the identities, like how the identities are different and how you're putting that out in PR. And just how do you see the date lines moving forward with the fairs?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, the date lines are, of course, always a subject of conversation. Up until now, you know, what we've very much said was that the fall fair was a pre-1920s show, and the spring fair is a post-1920s show, modern contemporary versus more old masters. You know, we have this complication. We want to be able to show off all that Maastricht has to display, but we're obviously limited in terms of size here, so we do split those two fairs. We do find that this public is generally very you know, attuned to the modern contemporary art scene. New York especially knows a lot about that and not so much about our fall subject matter. So something that we are doing moving forward is, especially in the period rooms, which you were in as well, is introducing a mix and saying, you know, even though the fall fair has this identity of a pre-war fair, we do want to basically showcase, you know, how we can mix modern contemporary artwork with this artwork, you know, and help people come in who might, you know, they might visit a modern contemporary dealer in the fall show because they know them, because they're friends, because they're collectors, and then they might discover something that totally different that they didn't expect to see. And that's very much, you know, the spirit of Maastricht also, that we do some mixing while still, you know, having a subject matter, having a thread through the fair, a focus, so that people don't get completely confused. There are also a lot of fairs, I think, in the Armory, so it does take a while to really establish this is the identity, this is the time of year in which this identity is relevant, and why. You know, and we're only 3 years old, so you know, definitely pushing that through. But in reality, you know, I don't necessarily want people to feel like, oh yeah, this fair is for me and that fair is not for me. I really want people to come in and feel like I'm going to see something that's really interesting, that's really you know, valuable in its own field, and I'm going to learn something and hopefully take something home that that is going to be delightful for years to come. So that's sort of how we're thinking about the identity of the fairs at this point.